Hello and welcome to this pitch about a 5 Advanced Web Application Firewall and a Big IP Cloud Edition. This pitch is an introduction for account managers and also for you as account manager. Gives you some tools to present to your customers. So what is the agenda? First we start with the question why your customer needs a web application firewall. And then we continue with answering the question why a 5 Advanced Web Application Firewall is even better than any other web application firewall. Then how advanced WAF can be deployed. And one of these deployment models is Big IP Cloud Edition. And because this is a new deployment model, we have created a separate chapter about this. So, first of all, the question why customers need a web application firewall. And answering this question is pretty easy, because if you go to some statistics, if you go to some research, you will always find answers similar like this. Because if you look at the world of cyber criminals and what tools they use and what entries they try to abuse to reach to customers' data, you will see that direct attacking web applications is the #1 source of data breaches. This information comes from the Verizon Data Breach Investigations Report from 2017, but other similar reports will show you the same kind of results. Another interesting thing about this report is that, according to this Verizon report, is that the use of stolen credentials against these web applications was the dominant hacking tactic. Okay, so if we know this, if we know that the web application attacks are the #1 source of data breaches, it seems obvious that we need to protect web applications. So if we know this, then the question is, what would be the right tool to do this? And there are a lot of tools on the market to protect networks, to protect applications, to protect users, to protect anything. But if you want to protect the applications itself, well, the right answer should be obvious. So the question is, what is the right tool to protect applications? Is it A, a next generation firewall? Is it B, a web application firewall? Is it C, a network firewall? Or maybe it is D, an intrusion protection system? And of course, the right answer is a web application firewall, because a web application firewall is designed to protect web-facing applications. A lot of people still confuse these different security products, and especially the next generation firewalls, as they think, hey, next generation firewalls are aware of applications. Aren't these the right tools then to protect applications? You might use the next slide. The next tool, the right tool to protect web applications, is not a next generation firewall. A next generation firewall is a great device to protect users that make outgoing connections. Users that you want to protect from doing bad things on the internet. From if you want to protect users from going to bad places. If you want to protect users from downloading bad content. You can use a next generation firewall, and there are many use cases for this device. But what it is about is a next generation firewall is a device that knows a lot of applications. It does inspection at layer 7, at the application layer, but just to identify applications. But that is not our goal. Our goal is to protect the application itself. And the right tool to do this is a web application firewall. A web application firewall has narrow but deep inspection, because a web application firewall is able to understand how your application works and exactly allow that which is good for your application and block everything which is bad for your application. So it has narrow but deep inspection, and that is what counts if you want to protect web applications. And the big difference is actually in the security policies. If you look at security policies, what a lot of security devices use, you will find that most of the security devices are based on negative security. That means they have a huge database with a lot of signatures about trends going on the internet, which are identified to be bad. So that means that the bad guys first have to create this vulnerability exploit, they have to launch it, they have to use it, before the good guys can detect it and put this signature about this bad content, put that in a database and try to filter this bad behavior out. So with negative security, you're always one step behind the bad guys, you might say. With positive security, however, you turn the game around. What we say at F5 is, hey, if you're playing a game that you cannot win, you should change the rules. And that is exactly what we do with positive security. With positive security, you're able to identify what is good for your applications, based on URLs, based on parameters, based on file types, methods, headers, application flows, etc. So based on all things that you can track about the usage of your application, you can really create a baseline of what is normal behavior for users working with your application. And everything which is identified to be not normal can then be blocked. So this is actually turning the game around. Because if the bad guys think about something new which does not look like normal behavior, hey, it should be bad, so therefore you can block it. Especially if you look at abusing applications with layer 7 DOS attacks or DDoS attacks, because everything looks normal, but actually the usage of that application is not normal. Think about abusing a search bar in a web application where you have 1,000 searches per second of just one character. This is something that looks normal when you would try to protect this with negative security, because there are no bad patterns. But when you turn the thing around, then you will know that, hey, 1,000 searches per second is not normal behavior, and therefore block it. Another good way to protect web applications is, of course, knowing where the connections come from, knowing which is at the other side, which is at the other end of the line, and knowing if this is a normal user making use of a browser, or if this is an automated process, or in other words, a bot. Bot is short for robot. And within F5, we have a very effective bot defense. We are able, from our advanced WAF, to communicate with the web browser of the user and communicate with that web browser using JavaScript and identifying a lot of things from the user device. So actually we create a kind of fingerprint, and in this fingerprint we know the operating system, the version of the operating system, the antivirus which is installed, the kind of browser which is installed, which version of the browser, etc. But also we can record the amount of keystrokes and mouse movements. So we are very well able to determine if this is a real user or if this is an automated process. And it's important to be able to do this, because if you think about the current attacks of today, what the bad guys use is typically the use of automated attacks. And automated attacks are executed by bots, are executed by scripts. And these scripts, well, of course, you understand that these can do nasty things to your applications. If you look at web application firewalls, one of the things that seems obvious to us, but is maybe not that obvious to all other web application firewall vendors, is that a web application firewall should at least protect your applications against all bad things that are listed in the so-called OWASP top 10. The OWASP stands for Open Web Application Security Project. They define every year a top 10 of web application security risks. And a decent web application firewall should of course protect against all these security risks. And you can be assured that with F5 web application firewall, also with our previous product, the ASM, the Application Security Manager, your customers are protected against all nasty things in the OWASP top 10 and even more. So if we look at the previous offer from F5, the previous offer from F5 when it comes to web application firewall was called the Application Security Manager, ASM. This Application Security Manager has some key differentiators from the competition. It is based on a full proxy infrastructure, which is unique in the market, in the web application firewall market. It is very well capable of protecting against layer 7 DDoS attacks because of this positive security. It has all the features that a standard WAF should have, and it has this very effective anti-bot detection system based on JavaScript to recognize if bots are connecting to your application. Well, this set of features in Application Security Manager is on the market already for several years, and we have gathered a position in this market. If we look at the Gartner's Magic Quadrant for web application firewalls, you will see that F5 is clear a leader and is highest in execution in this leaders quadrant when it comes to web application firewalls. So we did not do a bad thing with Application Security Manager. But still, we need to do more, because we cannot rest, we cannot sit still. If you look at the amount of R&D that F5 is spending every year, this is to make our strong products even stronger, because cyber criminals get smarter. Cyber criminals use more and more, or they abuse the vulnerabilities in the web applications more and more and exploit these vulnerabilities. They do that very often with automated attacks. They also make use of mobile applications, because when it comes to data security, protection against mobile applications is not that easy as with web applications, and you will see that in one of the next slides. Cyber criminals make more and more use of credential and data theft. They also make use of DDoS attacks that can stay under the radar, which we call low and slow DDoS attacks. And last but not least, cyber criminals make use of a lot of API vulnerabilities, because applications are very often now split up in multiple parts, or applications make use of information from other applications, and the way these applications communicate with each other is by means of APIs, application programming interfaces, and cybercriminals abuse that. So if cybercriminals get smarter, we have to get smarter as well, and we do. If you look at this screen, you see the two features that we already had with ASM. A web application firewall with a very efficient proactive bot defense. But next to that, we have added several features more, and we will now discuss them one by one. And the first feature that we're going to discuss is the anti-bot mobile SDK. And the word says it, this is an anti-bot solution for mobile applications. And well, as you know from the previous slides, and as you see over here, there is already a proactive bot defense. And you might ask yourself the question, why would this proactive bot defense from F5 not be sufficient Why do we need something extra when it comes to mobile devices? And that's exactly my next question. So the next question is, why is F5's proactive bot defense not sufficient for mobile applications? And the answers where you can choose from might be, well, mobile applications don't support JavaScript. Or maybe the right answer is mobile devices don't use HTTP. Or maybe the answer is C, hackers don't attack mobile apps, though you don't have to worry about this. And finally, answer D is mobile apps live in the cloud, and therefore the standard solution doesn't work. So, think about this. And the right answer to this question is that mobile apps do not support JavaScript. And as I told before, with JavaScript is actually a scripting tool that browsers do support. Otherwise, modern browsers would not look that smart. So JavaScript is a way to communicate with browsers. And that's what we do in our anti-bot, our standard anti-bot defense mechanism. But mobile applications do not run with browsers, and therefore they do not use JavaScript. So mobile applications do not support JavaScript. So therefore these JavaScript challenges that we use to check if there is a bot active instead of a human being will not work. So we have to do something different. And that's what we do with F5's anti-bot mobile SDK. So to explain this, what we do is we work together with a company which is called AWAF. And F5's mobile SDK is actually, you might call this an agent, which need to be installed on every user's mobile device that you want to protect. However, users do not want to install separate agents or software. So therefore we integrate this mobile SDK with the application of the customer, with the web application of the customer. How it works is this: when an organization develops an application and creates a binary code of that application to share that with the users via the App Store or Google Play or with whatever distribution mechanism they use, first they send this binary code of that application together with F5's mobile SDK towards AppDome, and AppDome creates from these two parts one integral application, new application. So that is the application of the customer together with, you might call this the mobile SDK agent, which will then be installed together with this application on the mobile device of the user. And the nice thing is that F5 as fast WAF can communicate with this mobile SDK agent on the mobile device when the application is used, and the mobile application is used to communicate with the application which is in the customer's data center or in the customer's cloud or wherever it is, as long as F5 Advanced WAF is in between the mobile device and the application somewhere running in a private or public data center. So that is what anti-bot mobile SDK is bringing. Next feature. The next feature is DataSafe encryption. And this feature comes actually from a other product what we have within F5, which is called WebSafe, and a part of WebSafe is DataSafe encryption. So this is actually in the web application firewall market. This is a unique feature. So this is really a differentiator for F5 compared to the competition. But within F5 we already have good experience with this, because this comes from our product WebSafe. And before I explain what DataSafe encryption is doing, let's first look at the why we need DataSafe encryption. And the why we need to use DataSafe encryption comes actually from the answer of this question. And the question is, what is, according to Verizon, the dominant hacking tactic against web application. And if you remember the first slide that I showed you, where we saw that web applications are the #1 source of data breaches, there was also a comment on the dominant hacking tactic used. And the answers might be, was it SSL hijacking, was it web scraping, was it shoulder surfing, or is it maybe the use of stolen credentials? And if you remember this well, it is of course the use of stolen credentials. Because think about it, if you want to, as a hacker, if you want to attack a web application, what is easier than make use of credentials of somebody who has certain rights at that application? So the use of stolen credentials is therefore pretty popular amongst hackers, and to steal credentials is actually pretty simple. And the next slide shows you how this stealing of credentials, credential or form grabbing, how this actually works. It always starts with an attacker infecting a victim with malware, and that can be done via several ways. This can be done by tricking a user to go to a certain website, to download certain content and infect the user to click on a link, for instance. Attackers are very smart with this, and victims can be easily affected with malware. Malware, by the way, stands for malicious software. Now, if this victim is infected with malware, this malware might not do anything. It might just wait on the victim's device until the victim makes a secure connection to a certain website which is programmed in the malware, where the malware wants to steal the credentials from. So when this website now comes back with a login form, then the malware is triggered. And when now the user enters its credentials into the login form, and this login form is sent to the website to log in and to get certain benefits from that application, these credentials will also be sent to a so-called drop zone, a drop zone where the attacker has access to, and the attacker can then harvest this drop zone. Now, with DataSafe encryption, the process that the hacker does is actually the same. So it infects the victim with malware. The victim makes a connection to the application and requests a logon page. So for the user there is no difference. The web application shows again the login page. However, Advanced WAF will add something to this login page. It will add some code, JavaScript code. As we discussed before, JavaScript is a scripting language that we can use to manipulate and communicate with web browsers. So this sophisticated code is added to the login page, and also what is added is a so-called public key. Advanced WAF creates a public and private key pair and sends together with this JavaScript code the public key and the login form. So now when the user is typing something into the browser, this JavaScript piece of code will, together with the public key, encrypt all the information as soon as it, you might say, as soon as it leaves the keyboard and enters the web browser. And that means that the code which is now entered in the login screen is in encrypted form in the web browser. And the malware is typically making copies of information from the web browser. So if this code is sent, if this username, password, these credentials are sent to Advanced WAF, and the password is encrypted with this public key, the only device in the world that obtains the private key is Advanced WAF. So Advanced WAF can decrypt this password and send it to the web application. The malware, however, which sends this username and password to the drop zone, will send it in an encrypted form with a key that the hacker doesn't have. So therefore the attacker is not able to decrypt and therefore not able to use the content. So the username and password are useless to the attacker. And again, this is a unique feature for F5. So this is really a differentiator from the competition. Another new tool is behavioral analytics. Behavioral analytics, and I describe it here together with upstream signaling. And before I explain why, let's first look at the problem again. So, next question to you. What is the most critical part when you implement or maintain application security? Is it maybe the manual interference and configuration that you have to do? Is it maybe implementing a DMZ, a demilitarized zone, in your architecture? Is it the fact that you have to upgrade always to the latest software on all your security devices? Or is it maybe physical access to your application? So physical security, keep the doors locked. Well, take a few seconds to think about. And the most critical part, of course all these parts are critical, but the most critical part is always the manual interference and configuration. The fact that if something changes, that it needs manual interference and manual configuration to bring your defense up to strength in this changed situation. And if you think about the fact that attackers use more and more automated attacks so that your application is constantly under attack, you of course also want to have it constantly protected and not when the application is changing, not to wait for a manual update on your security measures. And the only way to do this is automate. And that's what we do with behavioral analytics, DOS, and we combine that with upstream signaling. So let's explain what this actually does. Behavioral analytics DOS means that we first build thresholds. So this is all automatically done. From all sessions that are created towards the applications that you're protecting, we analyze the traffic and we build protection baselines completely automatically. When something happens which is not in line with the normal behavior, so not within the baselines, we will detect this as a possible attack. Doesn't have to be an attack, but it might be, and therefore we automatically create signatures of this behavior. And so in this way we are able to detect everything which is exceptional. Next to that, we will check if we see something exceptional. We will check where this exceptional behavior comes from. And we do that with our bot mitigation. So with our JavaScript and even maybe with a CAPTCHA, we are able to determine if the user is a malicious bot. Because out of the order behavior in combination with a malicious bot is of course very, very suspicious. And what we then do is also, or what we actually do at the same time, is analyze the application performance. As you know, our solution runs on a full proxy device, which means that we not only can monitor whatever is coming from the user, but also can monitor precisely what is coming back from the application. And we can measure the performance and anomalies in application responses. and therefore are able to see if an application is under stress. And the combination traffic out of the order coming from a malicious bot and having the application under stress is clearly identifying that we now have to do with a denial of service attack, and therefore we are able to stop this attack completely and completely automated without any manual intervention. And this makes our solution very strong. And this is new for all applications in Advanced WAF. But we already have experience with this because we had integrated it in our previous product ASM, but then we had it integrated for only 2 of the applications. Now we have it unlimited, implemented for all applications. Next feature. The next feature is API protocol security. APIs are application programming interfaces. Actually, that are interfaces that applications use to communicate with other applications, or if you've divided your application in multiple functional parts, communication between one part of the application and another part of the application. And API protocol security is designed to protect this API behavior and detect malicious API behavior. And you might ask yourself the question, why do you need to do that? Well, actually, that's the question that I'm asking you. So why do you need to protect your application programming interfaces? And the possible answers are, maybe it is because the majority of current web applications use APIs. Maybe it is because application developers don't know their applications have APIs. Maybe it is because hackers exploit unprotected APIs. Or maybe you shouldn't worry so much and only use APIs or only have to protect your APIs on IoT devices. Think a few seconds about this. And actually, I fooled you a little bit because we have 2 correct answers. And actually, it's the combination of these 2 answers which is really the problem. It is true that the majority of current web applications use APIs. Think about a booking system of a hotel that wants to show the available rooms to another application, let's say booking.com. You want to integrate applications with other applications too, because hotel chains want to sell hotel rooms, right? Think about your applications showing a map to come to your location in the contact session of your application. Hey, an integration with Google Maps might be used over here. And the majority of current web applications use these APIs. So why? Because why not make use of resources that somebody else has already created? Unfortunately, answer C is also true. Hackers will exploit unprotected APIs because APIs are not browsers, and most defense mechanisms are focusing on web browsers communicating with applications. But now we have different protocols communicating with applications. We have application programming interfaces open for other protocols. And what we have done with our API security is actually exactly the same as we have done in the past when we protect malicious users going to applications. So what we have done with HTTP and HTTPS, we now do that also for REST APIs, for JSON, for SOAP, for AJAX, for all these protocols that APIs are using. And therefore we do exactly the same. So we do our positive enforcement not only for users connecting to the applications, but also for applications connecting to applications. Finally, the new F5 Advanced WAF has some threat intelligence feeds that even can make your protection, your web application protector, protection stronger, because we make use of shared intelligence that we share with these threat intelligence feeds. And the three new intelligence feeds that we have are the Credential Stuffing Database, threat campaigns, and the Centralized Device ID. To give you a short description, Credential Stuffing Database is a subscription service that gives a feed of known stolen credentials. You might know the website Have I Been Pwned, to check if your credentials are known in databases of stolen credentials. We make use of such kind of database to directly give advanced WAF access to this credential stuffing database, so being able to determine if credentials are being used that are known to be stolen by cybercriminals. The second intelligence feed is about threat campaigns. Threat campaigns is also a future subscription for advanced WAF, and this includes signatures to mitigate current malicious campaigns. And actually the feature that I mentioned before, this behavioral analytics to create signatures of bad traffic, the upstream signaling also signals to the F5 intelligence teams that actually put together these databases with threat campaigns that feed these threat campaigns with new signatures. So if one threat campaign is used at one customer and we detect it over there, we automatically protect all the other customers that make use of this threat campaign feed. Finally, Centralized Device ID is a subscription with a database, a list of known compromised devices. You might say, hey, don't we have something like this in IP Intelligence? IP Intelligence is a service that we still have. Centralized Device ID is slightly different in a way that Centralized Device ID doesn't make use of IP addresses, but of device fingerprints, which is much more granular than just IP addresses. Because many devices, when they are behind a translation, an address translation router, they all use the same IP address. And hackers, of course, change IP addresses when they want to do their bad things. So with Centralized Device ID, we have more granular control. IP Intelligence, which is not on this page, is still a very useful subscription, which is still available. Think about geolocation information, which is of course based on IP address, is still very useful. So these are three new intelligence feeds next to IP Intelligence. If we summarize all the facts that I just shared with you, if we look at the slide that I've showed you before, with F5's standard web application firewall, which we called our ASM, with the features that we see over here, and the position that you see over here in the leader quadrant of Gartner. If you now look at the features that we have added, you see that we have a much more you might say grown-up product, a much stronger product with all these features like API security, anti-bot mobile SDK, DataSafe, BADOS, upstream signaling, and the threat campaigns that I just described. So all these new features are added to advanced WAF. And if you look at this in more detail, you see that API security and anti-bot mobile SDK are add-ons. That means that customers do not have to buy these add-ons if they don't have, or if they don't use APIs. If they just, for instance, create a web shop with no interference to other applications, they don't need API security, so they don't have to pay for it. Same is for anti-bot mobile SDK. When websites are created for browsers and this customer doesn't use mobile apps, it doesn't make sense to pay for anti-bot mobile SDK. So that's why these are in separate add-ons. DataSafe, behavioral analytics, denial of service, and upstream signaling are features which are integrated standard with the product. The three subscription or the three threats campaigns, the credential stuffing database, and central device ID, the three intelligence subscriptions are of course subscriptions and can be added to the product. So if you look at all these new features, you might say we now have a product that is really differentiated if you compare it to other products in the market, if you compare it to other web application firewalls. If you look at the packaging, we are very flexible in how to consume our products, how to install our products, and how to manage our products. We have several consumption models. You can buy these products with a perpetual license or as a subscription. You can also buy them in a per application virtual edition. You can buy them in an enterprise license agreement. You can even buy them pay as you go, which we call utility on in some public cloud environments like AWS and Azure. We also have different management models. The customer can all manage it themselves. They can extend that. They can outsource that to F5. They can even outsource the product to F5 Silverline and have it managed by F5 if they want to. Finally, of course, F5 is a grown-up company. We have our support, we have our services, we have our intelligence teams, which of course help our customers wherever needed. And if you compare all this with our competition and you look at the pricing, you will see that ASM was actually a very competitive priced, or was actually very cheaply priced. But if you now look at Advanced WAF, Advanced WAF is a highly differentiated product with superior features compared to the competition, and the product is priced and with the 1 gig version even very aggressive, and the 5 gig version comparable with the competition. So this would be a product which is good to sell, and also for our channel very lucrative, because if we look at the WAF Rebate Program, you will see that that we have nice rebates when Advanced WAF is being sold, and we even have additional kickers when Advanced WAF is displacing an eligible Impera product. Finally, I will now talk about Big IP Cloud Edition, because we already talked about implementation in different ways. We now have also a new deployment model which we call Big IP Cloud Edition. And before I explain Big IP Cloud Edition, think about the fact that your customer says, yeah, I like this Advanced WAF and I want to implement it, but I have different application teams, different application owners, different teams responsible for security for different applications, and I simply want to have a dedicated web application firewall or advanced web application firewall for my applications, because I want to have this one-to-one relationship. What if the customer says, I already have protected my tier 1 applications with web application firewall, maybe with ASM, but I also am thinking of my tier 2 applications, because actually the tier 2 applications, the next tier, they run on the same servers, and these applications can be used as a backdoor to penetrate these servers, and so therefore compromise also the tier 1 application. So I want to have the best protection for more applications, but I want to have this very cost effective. Maybe I want to have a self-service solution. I want to have my application teams, the application owners, to have application security very easy deployed, and I want these services being defined by my security teams. And finally, what if the customer says, yeah, I want to have auto-scale functionality, because if my applications scale up in the, for instance, the public cloud, and I need more capacity, I also want to grow my security capacity with it. So I want to have auto-scaling, on-demand scalability. What if the customer needs all this? What would be a solution for the customer? And I've put that question also in a different slide. So what is needed for per application dedicated, cost-effective, self-service and auto-scale security? Is it maybe per application VE? Is it maybe advanced WAF? Is it maybe big IQ management? Or is it maybe a combination of all these three? And to really have the effectiveness of the combination of all the needs, the combination of the solutions is of course the correct answer. And the great news is that we now have a product that combines these. The answer is Big IP Cloud Edition, because Big IP Cloud Edition is per application VE, and on top of this VE you can run advanced WAF, and Cloud Edition is actually a combination of per application VE with enhanced Big IQ management. So we have dedicated and right-sized services with industry-leading application delivery controller and advanced WAF, and we have that controlled via a self-service menu via Big IQ management with analytics, with auto-scale functionality and multi-cloud presence. So if we zoom in on per application VE on the Big IP Cloud Edition Advanced WAF, Big IP Cloud Edition combined with Advanced WAF, we have an Advanced WAF dedicated for every application. But that's not the only thing. This dedicated WAF has all the features that we just have discussed. So including the anti-bot mobile SDK, including the credential spoofing, including protection against hackers, against bots. So all the features that we have just described are there for every individual app. So summarizing Big IP Cloud Edition details, it is a per application VE, which includes the products, or which can include the products LTM and Advanced WAF. The performance, there are two choices, so we have 25 and 200 meg. There are of course configuration limits, because the size of Big IP CE is that small that it can be spin up and spin down really quick. Therefore it has a limited footprint, and the design is that it can be used per application, so therefore the limitation is that it supports one virtual IP address with 3 virtual servers behind it. Of course, Big IQ management is needed, is actually an integral part of it. We do service scaling via Big IP. The consumption models can be perpetual subscription and enterprise license agreement. And of course there are minimum versions for BigIP and BigIQ to have this working. BigIP Cloud Edition is available in all major public and private clouds. Currently it's fully operational on VMware and AWS, but it is already available on other platforms. But full available, that means we have the complete solution with spin up, spin down, functionality, auto scale, running upgrades, etc. And so the other platforms, except from VMware and Amazon Web Services, where this already is working, will follow soon in next releases. So finally, the summary slide about BigIP Cloud Edition. It delivers dedicated F5 application services for every app. It's comprehensive, easy to view analytics for every app. It gives you the best protection for more applications wherever they run to secure the security gaps. Simple templates from BigIQ to deploy services in seconds. And policy-based autoscale to quickly meet capacity needs. So to finish it off, easy to use F5 per application services for any application, anywhere. Thank you very much.